You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's November the 24th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. Good morning, Red Cindy.
Good morning, Al. How are you?
Not too bad. I went out for a walk this morning, and sure enough, I thought to myself, Al, you got to stop looking at the ground when you're walking because you never know what you're going to miss. Next thing you know, I hear a noise, and I look up, and I watch this deer
Very
bouncing
cool.
making its way away from me. And yourself?
I'm here. I'm in a lot of pain. I had a bad fall last week. That's why I wasn't here on Thursday. Fell about 4 feet into a dance pit, and lucky that I don't have any broken bones or a concussion.
Yeah, I'd say so. 4 feet. Yeah, that's a little high.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, I know somebody fell 3 feet and they ended up with 5 cracked vertebrae. We've had vertebrae in the back.
Yeah.
Compression fractures. Yeah.
They didn't X-ray my back. I've had my foot and my knee X-rayed. Nothing's broken there. And I can get up and walk. And they had me do a bunch of movements at the hospital. So it's just a matter of watching how the swelling and the pain goes. And I do have some numbing that's happening, so I'm going to have to, go find a doctor somewhere somehow to get more tests for that. But I'm here. I'm walking.
Here. Right. Yes. Limping probably.
I'm limping, but I'm not in the hospital, and I don't have a big old cast on my leg, and so I'm at least pleased with that part.
Good. Yeah, casts are a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
As far as weather-wise, I'm looking out the sky. I see some blue sky, and I know sometime over the next week or two, they're talking about 11 degrees high. I go, yes.
Yeah, I woke up to snowing this morning, although we're not supposed to get much, but I did wake up to a very light snow and snow-covered grass.
It might be gone by the end of the day.
It might be gone by the time we're done.
Oh, there you go. Even better. Okay, time we're getting things done. Let's get into the news.
Coming to us from Cannabis Business Times, U.S. Congresswoman demands answers from AG on new DOJ memo to prosecute cannabis offenses.
The Democratic Congresswoman is trying to get to the bottom of a U.S. attorney's left field announcement that he plans to start rigorously prosecuting cannabis offenses occurring on federal land in Wyoming. U.S. Rep. Dina Titus sent a letter November 21st to Attorney General Pamela Bondi to express her deep concern with the Department of Justice's guidance that apparently directs U.S. district attorneys' offices nationwide to start enforcing simple cannabis possession crimes in places like national parks and forests.
According to Darren Smith, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Wyoming, the DOJ directive was issued on September 29th, unbeknownst to the public or congressional lawmakers. Smith indicated in a press release last week that the DOJ's new guidance rescinded the Biden-era guidance that he said had instructed U.S. attorneys not to prosecute such offenses. If the Biden administration provided such guidance, it was never made public.
Now, Titus questioned Bonnie's motives in the letter, saying that this reversal, revealed only through a regional announcement, raises significant concerns about transparency and rationale underline the DOJ's enforcement priorities that will inevitably have a severe social and economic toll on communities throughout the country. Simple cannabis possession poses no meaningful threat to public safety, and it is indefensible to revive prosecution under an outdated law that no longer reflects the current use of cannabis in the United States.
Whether Trump's DOJ officially rescinded or reversed a Biden-era policy remains unconfirmed. Smith's office and the DOJ did not respond to Cannabis Business Times' request to provide the current policy document. Titus requested copies of both current document and the previous policy that Smith claimed was issued under Biden.
She goes on to say that the decision to resume prosecution for minor cannabis offenses demands immediate reconsideration. I urge you to reverse course and to release without delay the Biden-era guidance and the rescission memorandum. The public deserves full transparency regarding the policies that shape federal enforcement priorities and determine how tax dollars are deployed.
Titus also asked Bondi to answer the following questions by December 3rd. What has the DOJ specifically instructed U.S. attorneys to do as it pertains to cannabis offenses on federal lands? What specific cannabis offenses will the DOJ prioritize for prosecution on federal lands under the renewed enforcement posture?
What data and evidence informed your decision to resume prosecution of minor cannabis offenses? How many cannabis offenses or possession cases on federal lands has the DOJ prosecuted in the past decade? And how many does the department expect under the new directive?
The letter is unlikely to receive a response from Bondi, but it serves as a tool to gain public and media attention at a time when cannabis legalization remains a popular public policy. 64% of Americans support the issue, according to the Gallup poll released earlier this month. In her letter, Titus pointed out that the federal government's drug war on cannabis is a costly venture that has disproportionately impacted low-income and historically marginalized communities. Wyoming, in particular, has one of the highest racial disparity rates in the nation when it comes to cannabis arrests, with Black people 5.2 times more likely to be arrested than white people, according to the American Civil Liberties Union.
Titus also referenced a normal report that revealed more than 40% of all state and local drug arrests in 14 states in 2024 were for cannabis-related violations. These states have some of the least permissive cannabis laws in the nation. And Titus wrote that reverting the punitive criminalization at the federal level will not deter use or strengthen public safety. It will simply continue a cycle of incarceration and unequal enforcement. The ripple effects of a charge for simple possession of cannabis can have a life-altering consequences.
Smith's announcement of the policy change in Wyoming hasn't been reciprocated publicly among other U.S. attorneys' offices. The Associated Press reported last week that spokesperson for the U.S. attorneys in Arizona and Montana did not return messages seeking comment, and the U.S. attorney's office in Colorado declined to comment. There are 93 U.S. attorneys' offices covering 94 federal jurisdictional districts in the United States.
And Smith, from his office, says that cannabis possession remains a federal crime in the United States, irrespective of varying state laws. The detrimental effects of drugs on our society are undeniable, and I am committed to using every prosecutorial tool available to hold offenders accountable. Imagine walking through the woods, enjoying a nice hike in the woods at a park, and next thing you know, you get busted for smoking a joint. Wouldn't that suck?
No, I'm floored that there are people, especially in North America, which as forward as we've come and the studies that have been done, I'm beyond shocked that there are still people that classify cannabis as a drug, even if they don't want to see it completely as a medicine, but to put it in with drugs, just it floors me that people still think that way.
Yeah,
I mean, with all of the good that it does, I'm just like that one line from that floored me. Like I can't believe people still think that way.
WTF.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go from cannabis to psychedelics.
Yeah, coming to us from Health Day. The popularity of psilocybin psychedelics hasn't increased ER visits.
Good stuff. Now, there's some key takeaways. Increased use of psychedelics hasn't caused a rise in emergency visits and hospitalizations. Psychedelics account for fewer than 2% of hospital visits related to substance use. And after a small increase early in the COVID pandemic, hospital admissions declined through 2023.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Increased use of hallucinogens like psilocybin hasn't created an increase in ER visits or hospitalizations for bad trips, researchers recently reported in JAMA Network. In fact, after a small rise through 2020, admissions declined through 2023 with no correlation to decriminalization policies. This is coming from senior researcher Dr. Kevin Zhu, an assistant professor of psychiatry at Washington University School of Medicine at St. Louis, Missouri. And he said this in a news release.
Yeah, hallucinogen use is rising in the United States. Researchers said in background notes. Now, Oregon, Colorado have decriminalized the use of psilocybin, along with several cities such as Massachusetts, California, and Michigan. However, it's not clear how that increase has affected the health of the users, or researchers say.
Yeah, for the study, researchers tracked ER visits and hospital admissions for substance use involving people 16 to 64 between 2016 and 2023. Among more than 1.3 million people treated for substance use, fewer than 2% had taken hallucinogens, researchers found.
The monthly share of hallucinogen-related emissions ranged from 0.6% in January of 2016 to a high of nearly 1.2% in January 2021. ER visits and hospitalizations currently have stabilized into a pattern that's slightly above pre-pandemic levels, the results show.
Hallucinogens continue to account for a small fraction of substance-related hospital admissions, outweighed by alcohol and opiate-related encounters, the research team concluded in their report. The findings add important context to other studies showing rises in hallucinogen use. This is coming from researcher Richard Gruszka, a professor of family and community medicine and health outcomes research at the St. Louis University of Medicine. And he said this in a news release.
And he goes on to say that those increases don't seem to be contributing to rising ER visits. And if anything, alcohol and other drugs seem to be driving adverse consequences of psychedelic use. There you go.
And it says, what this means for you, decriminalization of psychedelics has not caused a surge in hospitalizations related to those medicines.
There you go. Good to know that it hasn't increased any hospitalizations. That's always, those are part of the fears, right? So.
Oh, it always is.
Yeah. That's good that has not transpired. And people, there's so many people that are finding health reasons to be using them and improving their lives. So. Okay, next story.
Yeah, coming to us from Cannabis Science and Technology. Updates on cannabis research for Alzheimer's disease symptoms.
Oh, we've got to show more button. Oh, a bunch of stuff there. Okay, I'm just scrolling down. How can medical cannabis affect symptoms of Alzheimer's? This month's Healer webinar, hosted by Dustin Solak, included analysis of recent in vitro and in vivo research on how cannabinoids can moderate various dementia symptoms, including those for Alzheimer's disease and even the core issue of memory loss and cognitive decline. Now, Dr. Sulak also briefly discussed how new federal legislation passed earlier this month may affect hemp products, stating, "There's still a lot of questions up in the air, but I think the most important thing for all of us to know is that it gives us a 12-month runway to find a way to make more sensible regulations." Yeah, exactly. Yes. Now, the first study discussed in the webinar randomized a clinical trial of low-dose cannabis extract in Alzheimer's disease. And that was published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease in October 2025. This study built on previous preclinical and clinical research on cannabinoids for Alzheimer's symptoms. In this phase 2 randomized double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trial, 28 participants diagnosed with Alzheimer's consumed either a placebo or a low-dose THC CBD balance extract daily for 26 weeks compared to the placebo. The participants taking the cannabinoid scored higher on mini mental state exam.
Though it was a small sample size, Dr. Sulak included the study because of its potential implications. These are small groups, but still quite significant numbers, he explained, noting that most other dementia studies do not include a placebo. But this study is really asking the question, what happens if we just kind of nudge the endocannabinoid system? Now, what happens if we really treat and titrate the treatment to observable symptomatic improvement? But this is like cannabis as a tonic, just a little dose. He also noted that cannabinoids could be a more affordable treatment compared to the FDA-approved treatment involving an infusion of antibodies. And there have been 2 rodent model studies.
Yeah. I think it switches over to a completely different thing, but we'll go through it anyways.
Sure.
It says the next study identified of cannabinolic and CBG acids, and there's a bunch of words there, inhibitors against Alzheimer's disease. So this is the second study on Alzheimer's and cannabis. Was published in Phytotherapy Research in January 2025. Researchers tested CBDA and CBGA as compounds for multi-target directed ligands to slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease by targeting multiple variables. Both cannabinoids were found to act on enzymatic targets relevant in the disease progression and symptoms. The rodent model portion of the study tested the cognitive performance in mice injected with beta amyloid peptides to induce Alzheimer's-like symptoms. The cannabinoids were found to improve hippocampal neuroplasticity and cognitive function, and CBGA also demonstrated reduced depressive-like behavior. They're quoted as saying, "I think these compounds have a lot of promise, probably beyond dementia," Dr. Sulak noted. These are just kind of a glimpse of what might happen in humans.
Dr. Sulak also briefly discussed the third study, which is cannabinoid acid reduces deficits in hippocampal long-term potential in models of Alzheimer's disease. And this was published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences in May of this year. This was another rodent study with CBDA, with researchers analyzing hippocampal slices and protein analysis in cortical tissues of mice with Alzheimer's-like symptoms. Basically, what these folks found was that CBDA in vitro at low concentration reversed the attenuation of long-term potentiation. These are really looking at upstream factors in Alzheimer's disease. How much energy does the mitochondria of the cell produce? How are the proteins handled? How are they sorted? And then how can the nerves make new connections with each other?
Now, according to Sulak, the main takeaways from the 2 rodent model studies are that CBDA and CBGA join other cannabinoids as proven multi-targeted directed agents in Alzheimer's disease, though this effect in humans still needs to be researched, particularly for effective doses for humans. A main question for future research is, can we get these effects at doses that are likely for humans to consume? And even though it's very hard to extrapolate that, these studies suggest that the answer is yes. So I'm quite excited.
Yeah, the final study, Can Cannabinoids Alleviate Behavioral Symptoms in Older Adults with Dementia? A systematic review. It was published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology in October of this year. Researchers analyzed studies related to medical cannabinoids used for managing behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. In total, 10 studies with a total of 278 participants were examined. Through multiple mechanisms of actions, cannabinoids demonstrated abilities to reduce agitation and sleep disturbances. Oh, that's huge. Improve functional abilities and increase caregiver satisfaction while exhibiting good tolerability.
Dr. Sulak concluded with a message on the potential of cannabis in alleviating the multiple stresses of dementia. Dementia, not just Alzheimer's dementia, but dementia in general is a huge problem, he stated. We don't have good treatments for it. We have an aging population. It requires a lot of care. It's a big financial burden on the economy. We need cost-effective and overall safe and effective treatments for this. We have them in our beloved plant, cannabis, and we need to continue to get these people to unlock their secrets.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Now, a bit of I told you before the show that I had a little bit of information on the cannabis and Alzheimer's that I would talk about when we got to this point. This Wednesday night on the Pace Radio Show, our guests are Kim Soltarski and James Tripp. Kim does the Healing Conversations, which is a series of patient stories about cannabis and how cannabis helped. On Wednesday, we're going to be talking about cannabis and Alzheimer's disease. Exactly that. And
wow.
The documentary is released. It's on Kim's YouTube channel. Amazing, Ain't It? That's what this YouTube channel is called. And you'll see it there. And the stuff that we were reading through there, I can confirm that James has seen the results of that. We're going to find out more on Wednesday. Yeah, I was excited when I had the opportunity to be able to talk to them about this, because we've had people in our family have died of Alzheimer's. So
same.
Yeah, exactly. So, all righty. Move on to the next story before we go to break. Actually, the last story before we go to break.
Yeah.
And there you go. It's up.
It's up. Coming to us from Normal. Meta-analysis, cannabis use not linked to elevated risk of oral cancer.
Yeah, cannabis use is associated with a reduced risk of oral cancer, according to the results of a systematic review and meta-analysis published in the Journal of Efficacy in Substance Abuse. An international team of investigators from Jordan, Iraq, and
Uzbekistan.
Thank you. Reviewed data from 6 case-controlled studies involving over 15,000 subjects.
Researchers identified no dose-response relationship between cannabis use and a heightened risk of oral cancers, regardless of subjects' duration of use. Instead, investigators suggested that cannabis may provide significant protective effects against cancer. Imagine that. They caution, however, that their findings may be influenced by confounders, particularly researchers' failure to identify subjects' HPV status. The pooled odds ratio demonstrated a statistically significant inverse association between cannabis use and oral cancer risk. The study's authors concluded, however, given methodological limitations, heterogeneity and exposure assessment, and conflicting recent evidence, these findings require cautious interpretation. Further large-scale prospective cohort studies with standardized exposure measurements are essential for definitive conclusions, of course.
Now, while cannabinoids have demonstrated well-established anti-cancer activities in preclinical models, their efficacy as an anti-cancer agent has rarely been assessed in clinical trials, they say. So there you go.
There we go.
Yeah. Nice, sweet, short article. Gets right to the point and gets us back on track. All right, time for us to take a break. Right, and when we get back, we'll continue with our stories that we've got lined up. Man, what are we talking about? Oh, psychedelics. Are they a human right? What do you think? We'll find out when we get back from break. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor? If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, we're back. We're live. And we've got, as I mentioned before the break, we've got 4 more stories to bring you. And I was too busy on my phone getting caught up on things in order to get ready for the next story.
Hey, I saw.
You saw. Yeah, I know. I get messages during the show, right? All right, here we go. It's ready.
Yeah. Coming to us from Harvard Law today, psychedelics, real risk or human right?
Yep. The road towards medical legalization of psychedelics remains a long, strange trip. One filled with thorny legal and policy questions, according to experts in an event held last week by the Harvard Law School's Petrie Flom Center for Health Law, Policy, Biotechnology, and Bioethics. Now, according to the facility director, Glenn Cohen, says that the public disclosure seems to be drawn only to these extreme questions. Psychedelics, yes or no? Enthusiast or skeptic? Too much hype, not enough hype. Although there are places where these are mutually exclusive, or we're going to try to bring the end into equation too.
In his introductory remarks, Cohen, the James A. Atwood and Leslie Williams Professor of Law at Harvard, pointed out that the center launched the Project of Psychedelics Law and Regulation in 2021 to examine the numerous gray areas in the debate over psychedelic research and access. Moderated by Slate Political Gabfest co-author David Plotz, the panel Towards Psychedelic Access, Go Faster or Slower, brought together fervent advocates for psychedelics access with those who favored a more cautious approach.
In the latter camp was David B. Yandon, a professor at psychedelic research at Johns Hopkins University, referring to the caustic psychedelic drugs, LSD, psilocybin, and DMT. He noted they have inherent dangers as well as medical benefits in treating mood disorders. There are real risks to these substances, he said, which do increase when you get out of the medical research context and into recreational and other settings.
What's needed, he added, is more rigorous medical research, something he admitted was difficult to accomplish because those substances are largely illegal. It's a funding issue. Most of the field has been funded by philanthropy up to this point. I'm one of the few researchers in the field lucky enough to have a National Institute of Health funded grant to study psychedelics, but it's relatively small. We've been hearing for many years across different administrations that the NIH will fund this research, and I think we're still waiting to see that happen. But we need a large government funding of this research to understand these substances the way we need to.
I largely approached drug policy reform as an issue of human rights, countered Kat Packer, distinguished cannabis policy practitioner and the residents at the Ohio State University Drug Enforcement and Policy Center. She cited Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, which contends that the war on drugs is the main culprit in the mass incarceration of people of color in the United States. Thus, Packer says, the drug policies themselves can be just as harmful as the drugs, and there are risks that we have an opportunity to mitigate.
Moderator Plotz asked whether the legalization of medical cannabis had become a smokescreen for people who really wanted it for recreational purposes, and whether there was a risk of psychedelics going that way. Some folks may be using these substances for medical purposes. Some may be using them for spiritual purposes, Packer replied. And some folks might want to just have fun and get high. And I don't think we should judge them for that. My intention is not to take a moral position on the use of these substances. But when folks are using them, how can we do more? How can we do so more responsibly? The opportunity we have is to take on a more nuanced taxonomy when we talk about these issues, and they don't have to be a smokescreen.
Matthew Wiz Buckley, a former Navy Top Gun fighter pilot, gave an emotional speech about the role that psychedelics played in the treatment of his post-traumatic stress. Buckley endured a sexual assault as a child and the loss of numerous friends during his service, both through combat and suicide. He says that it was a culture of tonight we drink, tomorrow we die. I was spiraling the drain and probably on my way out the door. When he heard about psychedelics therapy, he said his reaction was, man, go to Mexico and do drugs with Navy SEALs. Sign me up for that.
The treatment was the drug ibogaine, proved to be far more profound than expected. It was the most spiritual experience of my life. I hear you, my friend. I had lost my faith for 40 years easily. I reconnected with my late sister, my dad, and my God. Yeah, I hear you, buddy. Buckley said he has since come to regard ibogaine as a sacrament and has founded the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, as well as the Sacred Warrior Fellowship, a church built on psychedelic communion. He argued that restricting access to these medicines would amount to religious discrimination for him.
Now he says that I must have an old copy of the Constitution because nowhere does it say that the DEA gets to tell me how I can worship my God. But University of Pennsylvania medical ethics law professor Holly Fernandez Lynch cautioned that this kind of reasoning is unlikely to resonate with the FDA, which is focused on traditional medical models rather than spiritual healing. While the agency is not necessarily opposed to psychedelic treatments, she said, it looks for medically based documentation. She noted that the drug ketamine has been approved for treating depression, while MDMA has not, and that the biotech company Compass is now doing phase 3 studies on a synthetic psilocybin product. Now,
There's a lot of tension in the psychedelic community about what the right pathway is. I think I might have just jumped in on you, Al. I'm so sorry.
go ahead.
Fernandez Lynch said, when the veterans get involved like this, I get really excited.
Yeah.
I come at this with what I think is a pretty straightforward principle, although it's controversial in this community, which is if you're making medical claims, you should have to prove those medical claims. We should hold psychedelic medicines, to the same standard as other medicines. And what I say to that is, we have a millennia of studies that have happened. We just have to look at them. And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in the psychedelic community is upset at the fact that government scientists or scientists of any form want to prove us right. I mean, go for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Exactly. All righty. Time for us to move on to the next article.
Coming to us from StratCan. BC's direct delivery continues to grow in the second quarter of 2025 as flower sales continue to cool.
The BC Liquor Distribution Branch wholesaled 41,127,103 grams of cannabis in July, August, and September of 2025, with 154 million wholesale sales. Grams wholesaled by the provincial cannabis distributor increased 6.4% year over year, while wholesale sales were down 4.8%.
The price per gram of all cannabis products declined 10.7% to $4.30, while the price of a gram of dried flower decreased 1.5% to $4.09 a gram. The number of retail stores increased 2.4% year over year for a total of 522 stores, both public and private.
Sales. I don't know if I missed a spot or not. Sales in nearly all dried flower SKUs were down or flat in terms of grams sold, except for significant growth in the 7-gram SKUs. That's under $3 a gram, and 14-gram SKUs with $3 a gram. Half-ounce SKUs over $5 a gram increased 135%. year over year. And 7-gram SKUs were under $3 a gram, increased 99%.
Sales of all 1-gram SKUs declined by 25%. 3.5-gram SKUs declined by 19%, and 7-gram SKUs declined by 10%. 15-gram SKUs increased by 11%, and the 28 full ounce, they declined by 5%. The number of cannabis beverages sold via wholesale increased 11% year over year. Edibles increased 2.6%, and dried flower decreased 6.6%. Ingestible extracts decreased 20%. Inhaled extracts increased 3.4%. Pre-rolls increased 8.4%. Of course they did. Nobody wants to roll anymore. Seeds declined 64.8%, and topicals decreased by 9%.
For inhaled extracts, the growth was entirely from disposable vapes, which saw a 72% year-over-year growth, with 389,581 sold through wholesale. The number of cartridges sold actually declined by 8% to 902,000. Sales for most concentrates, such as hash and resin, rosin, and wax, all declined in terms of units sold. However, shatter increased by 6.2%, and infused pre-rolls increased by 1.7%.
That's interesting. The majority of ingestible extracts were sold capsules and pills, 60% by units, followed by oils and tinctures. Infused pre-rolls accounted for the largest share of sales of inhalable extracts by units sold at 46.3%, followed by cartridges at 32% and disposable pens at just under 14%.
Sales in BC's direct delivery program, which allows some smaller BC-based cultivators to sell through products directly to retailers, bypassing the province's central warehouse, again saw significant year-over-year increases to 52% in terms of Wholesale grams sold discontinued a trend seen in the previous quarter. Wholesale sales were up 33% to nearly 3.1 million compared to the second quarter of 2024, while the price of all cannabis products declined by 12.4% to $4 a gram, and the price of dried flower declined 4.3% to $4.16 a gram. The strike closed BC Central Cannabis Warehouse from September 22 to October 27th, leaving direct delivery as the only option for retailers, likely adding to these increased sales. I have to agree. Next quarter's figures are expected to even further reflect these increases.
Sales of units of cannabis chews increased 242% year over year to 21,287, while beverages declined 85% down to just 420. Well, that's kind of a funny number. The number of units of dried flowers sold increased 30% to 50,000, and the number of units of pre-rolls increased 12.4% to just over 64,500. The number of ingestible extracts decreased by 19.6%, while the number of units inhaled extracts increased 85%. The number of plants sold through the system increased by 76%. Yeah, who wants to buy seeds when they can buy plants already? To 335, while seeds increased by 280%. Holy Joe, to 19, and topicals increased to 19. Seeds increased 280% to 19.
I'm just baffled by, last week we're talking about plants being sold, and here the BC is talking about the plants being sold, but yet, I don't know, I don't see anybody even talking about buying plants, or even the stores around my area. Anyways, I'm not seeing them selling any plants. And what does a clone cost?
About $40.
Is it?
40 to 50, yeah. And they're not tiny little clones like we would get. They're in pots. They're they're little mini plants.
They are they?
Yeah. So you're getting something that comes with a guarantee, right?
Yeah, I can remember clones, $3 not rooted, $5 rooted. Boy, things have really changed.
Big time.
Big time. All right, here we go. Next story.
Coming to us from Hemp Gazette. Cannabis employees at risk of work-related asthma.
A U.S. study finding certain cannabis workers are at a risk of work-related asthma calls for preventative intervention from the industry. A Centers for Disease Control study published last year found 13 million of the estimated 170 million U.S. adults working in the previous year had asthma. Among those with asthma, an estimated 896,000 had work-related asthma.
One of the many sectors where work-related asthma poses a significant risk is in the cannabis industry, according to Kenneth Rosenman, who is the co-author of a new study looking into the issue. The research suggests workers picking, grinding, and packaging cannabis are developing workplace-related asthma, and 2 have been documented to have died from the related complications.
I do recall the one story about the one, it was a lady who died. She was a trimmer. Yeah, the dust, heavy dust. What it was. The study analyzed data from Michigan, California, Massachusetts, and Washington, finding 30 cases of work-related asthma. Of those, 13 were employees who didn't have asthma prior to working in the industry. The number of WRA's cases are likely much higher, but workers can be hesitant to report such problems. Now, according to Rosenman, says that there are a number of allergens and substances capable of causing allergic reactions. The 2 big ones were the cannabis dust itself, or the plant dust, and the disinfectants they use.
I can imagine the disinfectants would definitely. And then the dust, if it's in the air, if it's resiny and it's going to coat, you're not burning it, it's just getting in there.
Yeah.
I guess I can see both. Yeah. Most cases, 69%, worked in indoor cultivation processing. In the cases of the deaths, these occurred due to the victim's health care provider not setting medical restrictions. They have to be willing to write that note that says, this is a work-related condition and this person is eligible for workers' compensation, he said. Otherwise, you're just out on the street with nothing.
Rosamond says that the industry should improve workplace conditions for taking actions, including using disinfectants that don't induce allergies, ensuring that there is sufficient ventilation in the workplace, and carrying out medical surveillance and screening workers for asthma. This is clearly a preventable disease. Industries needs to be responsible, and workers need to speak out and talk to their healthcare providers, according
Absolutely.
to Rosamond. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, according to the CDC, there are about 428,000 people working in the legal cannabis industry across the USA in 2022. The CDC noted that among potential workplace hazards were exposure to bacteria, mold, and other fungi resulting from high humidity, wet conditions, and poor ventilation. Endotoxins, organic particulate matter, and dust from the plants, and then sensation of cannabis plant proteins triggering allergic reactions. Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I mean, like you know, like any plant, you know, like can end up growing mold and whatnot if the air is not right. If one thing is off, and that mold and those things can grow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember when this woman died, it was just like, what? Everybody's going, really? What's going on? But yeah, that was the end result. Was dust, heavy dust. Yeah, exactly. Okie dokie. Last story of the day.
Yeah, it is coming to us from Normal. Low levels of THC in blood not associated with significant changes in simulated driving performance.
Subjects who have not recently consumed cannabis but still have residual effects of THC in their blood perform no differently on a driving simulator than do those who are THC negative, according to the data published in the journal Clinical Chemistry. Researchers affiliated with the University of California at San Diego assessed THC blood levels and simulated driving performance in a cohort of 190 regular cannabis consumers. Study subjects were required to have abstained from cannabis for 48 hours prior to participating in the study.
Post-abstinence, and nearly half of the study participants had detectable levels of THC at baseline, with 1/4 of participants testing positive for more than 2 nanograms per milliliter of THC in the blood. However, those testing positive for THC showed no significant differences in their baseline driving scores as compared to those with no quantifiable THC concentrations. Our data argue that the concentrations we measured at baseline likely reflect steady state THC concentrations in this population several days after last use. The study authors concluded, we also show using quantitative data from the driving simulator that participants who exceeded the zero tolerance and per se cut points 2 and 5 nanograms per milliliter performed in a similar manner as those below the arbitrary values. These results add to a growing body of evidence that per se THC blood statutes lack scientific credibility as prima facie evidence of impairment.
The findings are consistent with those of other studies reporting no collaboration between the detection of either THC or its metabolites in blood, urine, saliva, and breath, and impaired driving performance. Nevertheless, several states have enacted laws criminalizing drivers who operate a motor vehicle with trace levels of THC and THC metabolites, regardless of whether the driver is impaired, which is so wrong, right? It doesn't make sense. If you're not impaired, why are you getting charged as impaired driver?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. In an accompanying editorial, authors said that the study's conclusions raised serious doubts about the scientific validity of using measures of THC in blood to identify cannabis impaired drivers.
NORML has consistently argued that law enforcement should not presume that the detection of either THC or its metabolites in bodily fluids is evidence of impairment, because their presence is not predictive of diminished performance. Alternatively, NORML has called for the expanded use of performance-based tests like Druid or predictive safety alert meter, which compares subjects' cognitive skills to either their own prior performance or an aggregated baseline.
There you go. Yeah. All it's proving is that there's THC in the person's system.
Yeah,
it's only proving consumption. Consumption. That's it. Nothing more. But yet there's a lot of people, that have had this charge, fighting the charge. And you got to hope that maybe some research like this, you get, the whole research, not just a quick article that we have, but the actual research. You take that and fight your case. It's got to help.
And there's been a lot of it. We've read a lot over the past year, like just in 2025. At least once a month we have something about driving and cannabis.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of studies, and it doesn't really matter where the studies are coming from. They're all studying the same thing. I don't care if it's coming from Israel, the United States, Canada, Mexico. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's all human condition, and we should be able to, call on that research when we go to court. I know here in Nova Scotia, there have been a few people that have been charged with impaired driving using cannabis. So I'm really hoping they fight it, and I'm really hoping it helps to start changing the way they treat it.
Yeah, well, medical patients are always at risk of being charged with impaired driving, even though they're not impaired. I had an article on Thursday while you were away on New South Wales in Australia, where an MP has put a motion forward, or a bill forward, which medical patients can help use as a defense. They will still be charged, but they're allowed to go to court, use medical defense, so on and so forth. Whereas right now, you can't. And so it's good to see at least one jurisdiction is starting along that line. Let's just hope that there's more of them that recognize that medical patients aren't out there, stoned out of the trees driving. Their patients they consume daily.
Just trying to be out of pain and out of anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anything before we say goodbye?
I don't think so. I think we're good. I will be getting a copy of the speech that I did last Monday night. Al is going to be rebroadcasting it on the station as soon as I get it. So keep an eye out for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Other than that, that's a report for today. Thanks to our buds at the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Limestone City, Hydroponics.ca. I stopped by there last week and I bought some stuff. Sure enough, I got home and there's Margaret. She's got this little bag inside there of goodies for me to have. She's always doing that.
That's nice.
And can't forget our other sponsor, At-Eze.ca. In closing, we'd like to say thank you for watching or listening. Plus, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.